Okay, so we've had a number of deaths, funerals of family members since we've been part of All Saints, a part of Highway. We've had, I guess, Anila's brother, father. We've had Pervin's father recently. Sushmita's dad that time also, no? Yeah. People who've been Melissa's mother, all have been part of. But just realize that Dipu Aunty, in one sense, for the last 3 years, maybe, I don't know, Pervin can share a bit more. For her church has been Highway. It's not been any other church. So she's really been a part of Highway, and it's, in a sense, the first death or funeral that's come out of this fellowship. So what I'd like to do is I'll hand over to Pervin and let her say what she'd like to share, and after that I'd like to keep the space open if anybody who's known Dipu Aunty would like to say a few words.
Yeah, thanks, Uday. I realized that yesterday when we had a small service for her on Zoom, and and last time at my dad's, I think there were so many people who couldn't come in, so and there are a lot of family and all that for Dipu Aunty, and I asked Anu, I said, Anu, can I just send it? I know not to everybody, but to a few people at least who've been praying for Dipu Aunty, and she said, of course, it's been her church. Highway was her church. I wanted to share something about her and something about God, because in all of this, God has been so extraordinary. I think about Aunty Dipu. Aunty Dipu was 83 when she passed away. And I think what has always amazed me about her, she's been my inspiration really in my life personally. And I think the thing that really amazed me about her, and this is one of the last things she said to me when we were talking one evening when I was alone with her. And she said to me, she said, I want to thank you because you brought faith into my life at this late stage of my life. With you and your Highway. And it just opened my eyes in a way that I'd never experienced God. And so I want to thank you for that. And for me, that was so amazing that here was a person at 83, who was still so open to receive. I look at myself and I think I know things or I'm close, but here was a person who was so open to receive right to the end. And she would listen to the sermons and ask me about them, and it was amazing to see that. I think the other thing about her, and which for me was something that was very precious, and I think was really God's Spirit in her, was the way in which she treated people, everybody. And I was struck by the fact that throughout all the people who were calling from all over the world to speak to her, there were two people, her cook in Allahabad and the person who was there, boy, Ramesh. In fact, she was calling out to one of the people she was calling out to, and she was always Ramesh. And we were just, it was just so sweet because it was like everybody. She called her grandmother, her mother's name, everybody, and Ramesh, and that was her. She just poured out regardless. There was no distinction of class, caste, nothing. It was just, she just poured into people, whoever they were, she poured into them. She lectured them the same way she lectured all of us. And she loved everyone. That was truly, and she impacted lives just in ways that were so particular and specific. And I think that was her. She was asking me at the end, she said, I said, Aunty, you know what's waiting for you, Jesus is waiting there for you and all your loved ones are waiting. And she said, I hope so about Jesus. I said, absolutely, I hope I've done enough, is what she said to me, at the end. And I wanted to, and for me that leads me to really how I saw God work in this time. Aunty Dipu was terrified of pain because she had lost her husband to cancer, and it was a very painful ending for him. And I think that was the one thing that she was scared about right through this illness. And she didn't experience any pain at the end. I mean, the way God worked it through the toxins, whatever, because of the toxins in her body, it numbed the pain. And so she didn't really experience that pain. And even I realized that God, just 3 months ago, we lost Dad, and she literally followed that. It was like a playbook she followed, but it was like God's grace because he had shown us what was to come, and so we were prepared, and we knew that even what we were seeing, which was quite agonizing in the last few days of her struggle, we knew she was not experiencing it, and so we could be somewhere there was some peace for us. So he really took care of every detail, you know, for us and for her. And the beautiful thing is that yesterday at 11 o'clock she passed away, and we were all around her, every single person, including on Zoom, all her loved ones. Everyone got a chance to speak to her. Literally, her son, I think, spoke her into heaven. Literally, he spoke her and let her go. And we were singing the song when she passed away. We were singing "Count Your Blessings." You know, that's what we were singing, and she went while we were singing. And I felt, again, just God's infinite love for us and for her in that moment, you know, of how he held us all together through it and held her and took her at that time. And I just want to say, yesterday evening we came back and we were all together as a family. And then mostly everybody had gone, and at, I don't know, it's some 11 o'clock at night, we put on all her favorite music because she was a dancer. I mean, she just loved to dance. As children, we were all constantly, music was being put on and we were pulled up to dance. And so we put on all her favorite music. God knows, all I Will Survive and Baccarat and all old music, YMCA. And we all stood up and we just danced and danced and danced and danced. And what struck me in that moment was that she was dancing in heaven and we were dancing here on earth, you know, and it was such a moment of celebration. And we were like, it could only have been, one would think it would be all sad, but no, we were celebrating in the midst of the losses too much in these last 3 months. And yet I think God has shown me that death is not an terrible end, or for us death is just, it's a sadness of loss, but it is such a glorious thing in terms of what it means for the people who are moving on, you know. And just being able to say that when people ask me how are you, and I say I'm very sad, but I'm so grateful, and and I can say that honestly today. Yeah, so I just really want to thank you all, because I think she felt so welcomed. She was so loved here, and she loved this fellowship. She loved our Wednesday fellowship. My God, all those kids. In fact, Daryl put up a little post on Instagram, and I thought that could only be Dipu Aunty that she's remembered on Instagram, which she didn't have the first clue about. But there she had a post on Instagram, beautiful little post from Daryl, and I thought that was so lovely. Because this fellowship, the Wednesday fellowship, there was everybody else, average age 25, and Aunty Dipu in the midst of it every single Wednesday. So that was also so special. So yeah. So thank you so much for this, Uday. Just to be able to remember Aunty Dipu, and more than anything else, remember and acknowledge God's extraordinary, extraordinary love and faithfulness.
Yeah, just want to give opportunity to anybody else who would like to say something. Few of us have met Dipu Aunty, and many of us have met her online also.
So yeah, yeah. So I would like to say something. I'm just trying to put my thoughts together. I mean, Aunty Dipu lived next to me, literally 10 meters away. Literally about 10 meters away for the last couple of years. But some of you know this. Dipu Auntie's family and my mother's family go back over 100 years. And it's not just knowing each other. Their lives, their families, the historical developments of each of the families through good times and bad were profoundly intertwined. My dad knew Uncle Joe and Dipu Aunty before they got married. My dad was responsible for taking Dipu Aunty to her first conference, SCM conference outside India in 1954. At that time to Ceylon. And so I wrote a message to Ranjit yesterday. And it was what struck me most about about Aunty Dipu, and I quoted. I didn't quote from the Bible. I quoted from Václav Havel, and Havel says, "Hope is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense and is the right thing to do, regardless of how it turns out." And what struck me was that, also echoing from Pervin's articulation of Auntie's sense of equality, she also had the strongest sense of what the right thing to do was. And she lived in that hope and that faith, that we must do the right thing. And I think she lived just a complete, full and vivid life. And again, echoing what Pervin said, she touched countless numbers of people across generations. So I think, her memory lives on, through that sharing of hope and of faith. And just one more thing that was, for me personally, very, very, very profound, was the fact that I was in the room when, she passed into glory, which in and of itself is really meaningless. But the thing was that some of you know that Dipu Auntie's own father died in very, very tragic circumstances, almost 60 years ago. And my mother and my grandmother were present at that moment. And they were very, very far away from home. And so I just thought, there was just a sort of sense of completeness, a circle closing itself. So I just want to say that I was truly blessed to have her in my life. And I know Lakshmi is here as well, and she can echo these sentiments. We grew up with Anu and little later Sujit and Ranjit, but she was also family, and I know she has. I am absolutely certain that she has passed and risen into glory. So I just want to give thanks for Dipu Auntie's life.
Amen. Thank you, Jairaj. Anyone else?
I first met Dipu Auntie probably 5-6 years ago, and it was at my mother-in-law's funeral in, memorial service at the St. Stephen's community, I think, of which Dipu Auntie was a part, I'm not sure. And it turns out we had all of these generational connections, which I wasn't even aware of. And I used to love to hear Dipu Auntie pray, because she prayed in that amazing Hindustani what's a Basha, I guess. And I just, one of my regrets is that we never got a chance to actually sit down and talk about all of the connections, but she knew my husband when he was a kid. They were together in Allahabad. She loved my in-laws and was so close to them. So I'm just very, very grateful that Dipu Auntie was in my life.
Carol wrote a really beautiful letter actually to Dipu Aunty, to reach out to Dipu Aunty, and I read it out to Dipu Aunty. And it was at a time when I was not, she was really in kind of a lot of distress. But as I read that letter, throughout that time of my reading the letter, she was just quiet. So I'm convinced that she heard every word, and each word was so beautiful. So thank you, Carol.
I just want to quickly add one thing, very quickly. A couple of weeks ago, she said to me, Jairaj, I want you to come. I want just the two of us to pray. So, and I said, Auntie, it's an honor. I'd be delighted, etc. And I went to her room, and it was just the two of us. And so we were there and looking at each other, and I was waiting. And I said, so Auntie, here I am, let's pray. And I expected her to pray, because I call myself a prayer novice, as opposed to the prayer champions we have in this group. And Auntie said to me, no, you pray. I said, Auntie, I can't pray. She said, no, you pray so well. And then I just prayed, and it, it flowed spontaneously. It wasn't, and Auntie, she just taught me in a way how to pray, to let it flow. And we did this a couple of times, before she passed in the last couple of weeks, and it was just incredibly fulfilling. So just wanted to share that as well. And I think Highway is also part of the reason I could do this.
Okay, I'd just like to share a little bit. So Dipu Aunty is actually Dipu Nani for me, because I've known her since the time I was a child. Apart from her family being very close family friends of my parents' family, and because my mom also grew up in Allahabad, so she's known my grandparents, and aside from that, she's even related to us through marriage. Her elder sister is was married to my granduncle, and so yeah, she was Dipu Nani for me. And across the years, I've met her whenever we went to either Allahabad, or I remember there was a period of time she was in Bombay working with the YWCA, and in those days, as a child, we used to attend the Bowen Methodist Church, and so frequently after that we would go across to visit her. And I always remember that you know even from those early memories to the more recent ones, that she was such a fun person, and as a kid I would look forward to going and visiting her. And while I didn't have the opportunity to know her personally, was only more recent, and I'm so grateful for that. In my visits to Bangalore, had an opportunity to go and just sit and chat with her. And like Pavin shared, the thing that really struck me was that for her age, she was so open to know God, to know new ideas, and to understand things that perhaps she had no reference to understand. And that's something really inspiring. And the other thing that struck me, which actually Jairaj and Pavan have already shared, was just the deep passion she had for people and the country. That was the other thing that really moved me, that she loved India. She loved India, and when she prayed in Hindi, it was just so moving. And in fact, I was just telling Pavin, when I went to Bangalore in December, something in me knew that I needed to go. And while God might have done other things through my time there, but I'm quite convinced that one of the reasons I needed to be there was that was the last time I got to meet Dipu Nani, and she was in pretty good health, and spirits were up. And I remember us sitting around laughing, sitting around the lunch table and laughing and singing carols. And what a beautiful voice, man! Like I remember wondering, where's this voice coming from? And because there were just few times I heard her sing, and I was taken aback by what a wonderful voice she had, so clear. And even at that age, because I just assume that when you grow older, your voice kind of disintegrates. But she has such a clear and beautiful voice even at that point. So I'm just grateful for her life, and for the times I got to know her, and she's indeed been such a blessing to so many, and even to me personally.
I'd like to just share a piece of Auntie Dipu's wisdom. So about 20 years ago, I was pregnant with my first child, and I met Auntie Dipu and told her how nervous I was to be a mother, how scared I was because I was alone in Hong Kong with just my immediate family. I had no wider familial support, just ranting and raving about fear and anxiety. And she said to me something which might be applicable to many of us. She said, "Don't worry about being a mother. That'll come naturally. What you need to start praying for right now is how to be a good mother-in-law." And I've never forgotten that. My child hadn't even been born And she was already projecting into the future because she said being a mother-in-law is a whole lot harder than being a mother. And with that wonderful memory that makes me smile, I'm so grateful to God for Aunty Dipu being in our lives, and her parents, and her children, and her grandchildren.
Avni writes on Facebook, Dipu Aunty was an outstanding woman, a woman of great strength and resilience. She has left very big shoes for us to fill. She was a blessing from God to whoever she met. We will miss you so much, R.I.P. Dipu Aunty. And Anita Jacob writes, a beautiful human who's left an indelible footprint on our hearts. Pavni asked to share, so I'll just spotlight.
Yeah. Sorry. So when we got to know yesterday about Dipu Aunty, I think what's been so special for me personally has been that in the past couple of years we've been as a family in Bangalore during the whole time in December. So basically Christmas and New Year. And for anybody who knows Mami's family, crazy family, there are like 800 people in that house, and there's screaming and shouting and all kind. There's so much joy, but there's so much happening. And for Wendell and for me, more for Wendell in that craziness, he sometimes hides in small nooks and corners. But the one space that I think for him, that was a space that he felt comfortable in, was to just sit with Dipu Aunty, which was either in the kitchen or somewhere. And I think that just speaks of really her heart to just connect with people and just make them feel comfortable. So I think for me, she's been so special because of how she's, I think, meant for Wendell as well as for me, but more so how I see what she did for Wendell and just how he feels towards her and all of that. So I think it's probably the first person in our lives that we both feel so strongly about and who we've lost. One of the first few people. So and of course she was very happy when I would speak to her in Hindi, because the gang in Bangalore could barely string a sentence together. And so and somehow I would speak to her, I would only speak to her in Hindi, and I would find the right words, and she was just so just want to say thank you, Jesus, for the time that we've spent with her and the impact that she's had on our lives, on and her wisdom, because that's what Wendell also says, that she was wise in those few things that she said. I don't even remember some of the stuff, but in the moment she was so wise and so amazing. So yeah, just thank you.
So actually, I didn't know Dipu Aunty so well, and I hadn't met her. But whatever I know of her, I know from Ivor. And every time Ivor has gone to Bangalore and come back, or been to Pervin's place, he'd come back and said, I met Dipu Aunty, and wow, what a woman. And those of you all who know Ivor know that that kind of praise doesn't come easy. And I'd always be in awe of, what did I miss? But every time, and Ivor said that so often, have you met Dipu Aunty? What an amazing woman. And, like a lot of you shared, she was so accomplished. She had an amazing network. She said, and Ivor would say, she's so clued in. She knows so much about everything, and I'd be like, wow. And Ivor saying these things is like superlatively high, but just from all that I heard from him, and whenever I saw her online, whenever she spoke, first thing that always struck me was her voice. I mean, what a voice. And whenever she shared, she always, she didn't speak too much, but whatever she spoke always carried that weight of wisdom, and she chose her words so well. So yes, I will miss having interacted with her on earth, but I know that in heaven we will cross paths, and I hope to make an acquaintance with Dipu Aunty there.
I just want to say that everybody who's been to my house and what Pavani was saying about that madhouse and the 800 million people in the house, that is that is Auntie Deepu's legacy to me, because that was her home, and I think I always wanted to have a home that was as mad as hers, and where the guiding principle was, if more people landed up, don't panic, just water the dal and make sure that whatever you have will be shared. So yeah, so I just that just reminded me of that.
So I'll just say one thing. Many people have shared many things about Dipu Aunty. When I maybe met her, I don't know, 3 years ago, I'm not sure how long it was, when she was living with Pervin, and she was finishing a book at the age of, I guess, 80 plus. She was finishing this book, and that really impressed me, that even at that age she was busy doing something new. And I know, because many people tell me to write, and I'm so lazy and so indisciplined to even write one page of anything. But I can imagine what discipline it took her at that age, therefore, to write a book. And in fact, when she was sick, I said I better read the book before she dies. I didn't complete it. I've read half of it, but I'll complete it before, in a couple of days. But yeah, it chronicles an incredible life, and especially so many people, as we've been talking about, people who loved her so much and were affected and impacted by her life.
Sorry, 1 second. One more thing. Last thing. And that actually at that age, I think it was incredible that she bought her own house. She was so, I don't know, just determined. And even though she knew, I don't know, I don't have that many years, for me it was just like, wow, that you'd actually wanna buy yourself a house now and say, I've done so much in my life and now it's my time to chill. So yeah.